Hey everyone, welcome back. We're all about getting to the heart of things here, really understanding something without getting lost in the weeds. And today we're looking at a tool a lot of you are already using, podcasts.
Right, exactly.
But we're not talking about just listening for fun this time. We're going to dive deep into how podcasts can actually help you learn and improve your English.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got this really interesting article here that breaks down the benefits,
Yeah.
and it talks about all the different kinds of podcasts that are out there for English learners. So our goal today is to pull out those key insights, the really practical tips, so you can use podcasts to actually boost your English skills and maybe discover some new favorite podcasts along the way.
Yeah, and what's really cool is that podcasts have kind of exploded in popularity, right? I mean, it's not just a niche thing anymore. It's this huge global phenomenon.
It really is, yeah.
And within that whole world of podcasts, there's this amazing selection specifically designed for learning English. So we're talking about a resource that's already out there, readily available, that you can use to actively improve your understanding and fluency.
Okay, so let's get into why this approach can be so effective. This article we're looking at, it starts by talking about the idea of natural conversational English. A lot of language learning focuses on textbooks and really formal language, right?
Right, yeah.
But when you listen to native speakers just talking naturally, it's a whole different ballgame. You hear slang, different speeds, and, especially all the different accents.
That's a really crucial point, the accents, because, understanding English isn't just about knowing grammar rules. It's about being able to understand real people from all different backgrounds. And podcasts really do a great job of throwing you into that authentic audio environment.
Yeah, and the article also talks about the convenience factor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can listen to podcasts pretty much anywhere, on your commute, while you're working out, even just relaxing at home.
Exactly. It's all about fitting learning into those little pockets of time you have throughout the day. It doesn't have to be this big separate thing.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so now the article gets into the different types of podcasts specifically designed for English learners. And this is where it gets really interesting because there's a whole range of them tailored to different levels.
It's true, and it's really cool to see how much the content has become so specialized. It really shows a deep understanding of the challenges that come with learning a language, especially at different stages.
So for those who are just starting out, the article mentions the English we speak from the BBC. What makes this one good for beginners?
Well, the great thing about the English we speak is that it focuses on everyday phrases and idioms, the kind of things that native speakers use all the time. It's not so much about complicated grammar, but more about those common expressions you might not find in a textbook.
Right, the kind of stuff you need for real conversations.
Exactly. It's very practical and focused on the real world.
And the article also mentions ESL Pod for beginners. What's the main focus there?
So ESL Pod is really all about clarity and making things easy to understand. They often speak a bit slower, and the vocabulary is chosen carefully to be accessible for beginners. The goal is to build that basic understanding and help you gradually expand your vocabulary.
Okay, so moving up to the intermediate level, for people who have a decent grasp of English but want to improve, the article suggests all ears English.
All Ears English is great because it takes that basic understanding and helps you develop your speaking skills.
Yeah.
They talk about common phrases and those little cultural nuances that are so important for communicating effectively.
I see, so it's about more than just knowing the dictionary definition of a word.
Yeah, exactly. It's about understanding how to use language in different social situations.
And another one for intermediate learners is Luke's English Podcast. This one sounds like it has a slightly different approach.
Luke's English podcast is kind of unique because it blends learning with entertainment. The host is a British English teacher, and he really tries to make things fun and engaging. It's not just about dry lessons. It's about experiencing the language in a more relaxed way.
That sounds great, especially for people who, might get bored with just traditional lessons.
For sure.
Okay, now for those who are at a more advanced level and are looking for a real challenge, the article points to TED Talks Daily. That might seem intimidating at first, right?
It can be, but that's exactly what makes it valuable for advanced learners. TED Talks Daily exposes you to more complex language, a wider range of vocabulary, and discussions on all sorts of intellectual topics.
So it's about really pushing your comprehension skills and understanding more nuanced language.
Definitely.
And the last podcast mentioned is the English Classroom Podcast. What's the focus there?
The English Classroom podcast really gets into the nitty-gritty of the language, grammar, pronunciation, Those subtle details that can really make a difference in your fluency. It's great for those who want to master the finer points of English.
Okay, so we've got a whole spectrum of podcasts here, something for everyone, no matter where they are in their learning journey.
Hmm.
But just listening passively while you're doing other things, that's not going to be the most effective approach, right?
Right.
The article gives some really good tips for actively learning with podcasts. And the first one is active listening. So what does that actually look like for someone trying to improve their English?
Well, active listening means really being engaged. It's not just having the audio on in the background. It means pausing to write down new words or phrases you hear, maybe repeating those phrases out loud to practice pronunciation. Really trying to understand the meaning and the context, even if you have to look up a word or two.
That's about being more intentional and focused with your listening. And that ties into with the next tip, which is choosing topics that you're actually interested in. Why is that so important?
Well, because if you're listening to something that genuinely interests you, whether it's science, history, technology, whatever, you're going to be much more engaged. You're going to pay closer attention and you're more likely to stick with it over time. It makes learning feel less like a chore and more like something you enjoy.
And the article also talks about how helpful transcripts can be. So for someone learning English, how valuable are those?
Transcripts can be incredibly useful. They let you see the words as you're hearing them, which can be really helpful for understanding fast speech or words that sound similar. You can follow along, pick out specific vocabulary you want to learn, even use them for reading practice.
Right, that makes sense. And the last tip is something we hear a lot in language learning, which is repetition. Why is it so important to listen to episodes more than once?
Repetition is really key for internalizing new information, especially with language. When you listen multiple times, you catch things you missed before. You become more familiar with the vocabulary and pronunciation, and it helps solidify that knowledge in your memory.
So to sum things up, it seems like podcasts are a fantastic way to immerse yourself in English, right? And it's not only flexible and convenient, but there's so much variety out there. You can find something that matches your level, your interests, and fits into your daily life.
Exactly. And by being intentional with your choices and actively engaging with the content, you can make real progress in your listening skills, vocabulary, and understanding of how English is actually spoken.
Okay, so now you, the listener, you have a good overview. You know why podcasts are such a great tool, the different types out there, and some solid strategies to make them work for you.
And this brings up an interesting question to think about. Imagine how consistently incorporating just one of these podcasts into your routine could change your understanding and fluency over the next few months. What kind of new conversations and content might that open up for you?
That's something to consider.
Uh-huh.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.